A new Sword Art Online film, Scherzo of the Deep Night, was recently released in cinemas, and being the film connoisseur and SAO watcher that I am, I decided to watch it. And to be perfectly honest, the film does not really offer anything new from the series, as even though the film is meant to be from Asuno's point of view, the film just feels like your generic Kirito romp. But I'm not here to analyse the film in depth. I'm here because of Asuno's speech at the end of the film, which is the generic hero worshipping speech of how good Kirito is, with her asking, "Why does it have to be him? And why does no one like him?" Kirito looks bemused after this, as like me, he has a brain, and realised that this was literally the only way to resolve the issue that they had, and he would have to be perceived as the bad guy to help the rest of the player base. So why did it have to be Kirito? To start with a rough backstory, after Diable dies at the end of the first boss battle on the first floor, the floor clearing players split into two guilds. The first is DKB, or Dragon Knights Brigade, who are your typical raiding guild who follow rotations and have strict rules around loot, where all the best loot has to be given to the best players, which, given there are 0 respawn points, is placing all your eggs into one basket, as if one of your key raiders dies, then you're having to gear up a new one from scratch. The second guild is ALS, or Einkrad Liberation Squad, who are more of a loose collection of people who want to keep their own loot, and are after progressing through the game without any rules. As you can imagine, these guilds have attracted some interesting characters. Now the guilds are at each other's throats over who should lead the main clearing group and who should have the last hit on the floor boss, which grants the last hitter extra loot. Now this heated exchange is going to go nuclear due to the unique item that drops from the 5th floor boss, which is a standard that AoE buffs everyone in the raid while the user has the banner in the ground. So having the banner would give your team a notable advantage over your rivals, and may lead to some of the less experienced members defecting to your guild simply for the bonus protections and stats during the clearing events, because again, you might die without them. Additionally, some members of ALS are player killers, who desire to act out their PvP fantasies in the game, and are looking for any opportunity to cause a war between both guilds to satisfy their sick fantasies, and they are planning to use this unique drop to rupture the relationship between both guilds. In order to prevent the guilds from going to war, Kirito hatches a plan to prevent either of the guilds from getting the banner, and that involves him getting the banner. And with that film backstory out the way, why did Kirito have to end up with the banner, and why not someone else? Well, to start with, unlike Asuno, Kirito is a solo player, and is never going to willingly join a guild, which means that neither side will be able to use the banner in the future, and he also has no favouritism for either guild, meaning that he will never give their rivals the guild banner to assist them with their grinding. Thus they know that the guild banner will be forever out of their reach, preventing them from getting angry at the other guild. Another reason why it has to be Kirito is that he is a well-known player through the Dark Swordsman moniker, meaning that the clearing group know who he is, so rather than giving the banner to Mito, another solo player who is an unknown to them as a result of being an anime-only character, they would know and trust that Kirito would keep his word and the banner would not fall into their rivals' hands, as both sides would have propositioned him in the past plenty of times to join their guild prior to this instant, with him rejecting their advances. And the final reason to why Kirito was the only one who could do this was that he is ridiculously strong, meaning that it was unlikely that the other guild could use violence to intimidating him into turning over the flag. Thus they could be content with the knowledge that neither side could risk fighting him and losing enough members that would make acquiring the banner pointless. Besides, he might not even give the banner up when threatened with death, and just leave it on himself, and then make the guild attempt to kill him. If they could, that is. As for the other comment of Asuno, focusing on why the ALS members would not like him, it is because Kirito had just taken away one of their key methods to jump ahead of their rivals in DKB, as the standard was a surefire way to ensure that they would have an advantage over their competitors since they had killed the boss on their own and have ensured that they would have secured the banner and the power lead that they would have held over the DKB moving into the 6th floor. Furthermore, the lack of loot from the boss, which would undoubtedly involve some powerful gear-ups for their members, would have annoyed members of ALS, because Kirito might have deprived them of a piece of loot that could have literally saved their lives. Additionally, as referenced earlier in the film, some members of ALS are future members of the Laughing Coffer Player Killer Guild, who desired that the two guilds fight each other to satisfy their morbid fancy of murdering a person IRL. So obviously removing the big incentive for them to kill each other would have pissed them off, and made them call for their guild to take him down. Kirito's speech would have also irked them, as if they had joined together then the chance of war between guilds would have been nil, so they were upset that he would have propositioned that, and were calmed down in the anime by Kirito stating that they were never going to join together, because they were so ideologically opposed, and also for the blunt reason that most of them hate each other. Overall, Kirito had to be the bad guy in the situation, as without it the future looked bleak. And unlike Azuno's crying complaint, there was genuinely no one else who could have done what Kirito did and maintained the peace between the two guilds, and accelerated the clearing of the floors moving forwards to the next film. If that next film ever happens, that is.